How's everybody doing today? Back at it again. We're going to do a couple quick scouting missions today, kind of like just some quick tie some pieces together on some places that I already have pretty much scouted out. But on this one, this first spot here, we might head over to a second spot as well. We're just going to scout out the back side of this thermal bowl. I don't want to go up into the bowl or down into it or any of that. I just want to get the back side of this ridge right here where I'm pretty sure they're coming over and bedding on. So that way I can figure out where they're traveling from to come down into the bowl. Right now we're at the bottom of the hill and we're about to head up and kind of skirt the edge of this hill and try to figure out where they're bedding. There's a lot of private right here and then there's some state, but up on here on this ridge they're bedding, and then up over that ridge down is where the thermal bowl is. So we're going to try to scout out this ridge right here and get that figured out. Just getting started here, coming off of the truck, and we got a nice track already right here. That's a good sized buck track right there. As everyone knows, it rained pretty hard last night, so that track's definitely over a day old. We're gonna cruise up here. See, we're already up on this knob here. So we've already gained, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet of elevation. And that's the bottom of the hill right down there. But these bucks are bedding back in here on these knobs. This is the downwind side of the thermal bowl. So a lot of times they'll bed up on these ridges and knobs on the downwind side of that thermal bowl so they can smell that during the day when all the thermals are rising. And then as the thermal shift happens, they move down into that bowl and everything gets sucked down into that bowl. It's one of the most important things to master if you're going to try to hunt in one of them thermal bowls, is timing that shift, because that's what causes these bucks to move. They want to be in that thermal bowl when the thermals start pulling down for the night, because it's going to pull all that scent to them and they can stand down in that area and scent check the whole area, figure out where the danger is, and then figure out where they're going to feed. And then during the day, they're laying back around that bowl so that way they can smell everything that's happening down in that bowl. That's how they know if it's safe to go down in there during the night. So if you're sitting down in that thermal bowl too early, all your scent is going to just be rising up to them, and they're going to be smelling you all day, and they'll just never go down in there. Just something to keep in mind. I know it happened to me a lot last season before I figured that out. Because you want to hunt right down in there where all that big huge community scrape is, or all that hot sign is down in the thermal bowl. But that's the trap. Unless you time that shift perfectly, and basically you gotta follow that deer down in there, which that's very difficult to do, or have just the right conditions to where you can hunt down in that hub. Always remember that hub's set up for them. That's where they have every advantage there is. If they're not looking down in there, they can smell down in there. So that's what we're trying to figure out today, is where they're bedded back away from that hub to try to intercept them going to the hub. Just checked the map and got oriented again. We're kind of coming through the hills here. We came up onto a knob and now we're dropping back down. I just got to kind of be careful where I go here because there's a lot of private and public, kind of checkerboarded in. So that way, I don't want to go on these people's private land, but I do want to scout the public land that's right here. So another challenge to the hunt. We're just going to keep heading down here. That's our first track right there. It's a track from last night. It's pretty decent. Going that way. Definitely not a giant like we're after, but a decent one. No, there's the giant. No, it's two tracks together. It's two tracks together. Alright, we got a second to cruise down the two track here before we really get into where I want to scout out. But I am getting a better feel for the land back here as I walk down the two track. It's definitely pretty hilly over here. A lot of little hiding spots. And like I said, you got the private that backs up right here. And honestly, I don't think some of these people actually even hunt, surprisingly. I think some of them just kind of like feed the deer and look at them. So, now we're getting down into where I normally see some deer sign down here. Looks like there's an old road right here, a parking spot. I'm gonna check the map again real quick. It looks like there's an old road heading up this way. It actually goes the exact way that we want to go. So I'm gonna take this real quick. And it looks like it's starting to rain. So we're definitely on a trail here. Definitely started raining too. We gotta let rain go. So hopefully it doesn't rain too hard or I won't be able to video. This old road here. Cruising up this old road and we got our first scrape right here. Looks like a pretty dandy one too. You can see a pretty nice bucket here. Got a nice old licking branch here. Another really old licking branch right here. You can actually see another scrape right here. Alright. You can see that right back there. This is kind of crazy how this scrape is with this log here. And then this log here, there's actually like a box around this. If you look here, look there, like it's like a little room you gotta go in. And then you go right in here. Got the big licking branch right here, down to the scrape. You can also see from this scrape, the buck is hitting it from that way. He kind of has to, because it's inside of that little log room like that. I've never really seen one like that. That's kind of cool. He had to there was like a couple fallen down trees and he had to go in there like a little room. But this is directly downwind from that thermal hub. So, this is like maybe another one. Alright, we're still heading down this logging road. That looks like a giant bedding area right there. There's a huge bed right here under these pines. You can see this giant bed right here. Trail coming down. guys can see that giant bed under these white pines right here. It's right here. Alright, now we're starting to head uphill here. It's really starting to rain a little bit. Looks like a bed right there. Just this big bed right here. Alright, I marked that bed. Doesn't seem like much, but that pine bed, that scrape, and that bed right there are the exact beds I'm looking for. Because that's where that buck's bedding back. We're back behind that little hub right now. I know he's bedding back here in all these hills and stuff, just like he was right there. Glad I chose to come in the woods today because it's freaking raining right now. I'm staying high and dry in here though. It's starting to rain pretty good now, but I'm dry in here under all these leaves, so that's nice. I'm gonna check the map again, kind of get oriented and trying to figure out where this guy's sleeping in here. Alright, check the map again. We gotta head this way, a little course correction. But we're definitely in the right area where we want to be. Just gotta find out. This might be a big trail right here. Yeah, this is a trail right here. Alright, I marked this big trail. I think this is the exact trail we're looking for. And keep going. There's somebody dropped a coffee cup, but that looks pretty old. As you can see, it's getting all kind of knobby and brushy in here. This is where the bucks are going to be. Huge knob right here. Alright guys, we just made a massive ground score right here. We didn't win the mushroom battle the other day, but we definitely won it today. Came into a big grove of honey mushrooms right here. And they're just everywhere in here, so we'll have to take some time and pick these, but I'll flip it around and show you guys. I'll pick them on the way back. Got a bunch there, there's a bunch there, got them there, got them there. I mean, they're all back over in here. Look at these are perfect. So we'll definitely get all those. They're all over in here. There's a giant trail right here too. Holy crap, look at this bed, guys. This is where he lays. Just following the mushroom trail here, and this is definitely where that buck lays. Look at this bed, guy. That is huge. You guys see the shape of that kidney bean? Got right here. There's this huge butt going up. There's his back. There's where he lays his head. Right on the top of this hill right here. And he's got this one tree right here that he's laying by. You guys see that one tree? There's that giant bed. You can see he kind of walks around in here. Alright guys, that was a super happy accident. I was just showing you guys all the mushrooms in here, and there's a ton more. And we accidentally found this bed, but you can see there's trails coming from everywhere to this bed. So, I'll flip it around again and show you guys. You can see this giant bed right here. You can see he's got this pole right in the middle, and you can see where he's walking around it, and then he's laying right there. And the 2-track is right there, and he's laying right there. I don't know about you guys, but that gets me fired up. First of all, finding all these mushrooms. There's a whole bunch more. Second of all, finding the exact buck bed we're after. You can see he's laying down in here some other places as well. And he can lay right here on top of this knob and smell everything that's going on in that thermal hub over there. Here's another one of his big bed. That was a really cool bed right there. That's a big deer. He's laying in the middle of these open woods. It's not really open, there's a bunch of whips right there. But it's pretty open still. And he's up on top of this knob. I'm just kind of exploring around right here. Trying to see where else he's probably bedding in here too, I would guess. Yeah, this is a giant bed right here. My guess is what we just got in is the doe bed. But look at this bed, guys. It's like a house. You can see the trail coming in. And it goes right in here. And there's a giant bed right there. Alright guys, I just checked the map. And this house that we're on, and where that big giant buck's bed is right, we are right on the lip of the thermal bowl right now. So I'm not going to push down in there at all. I'm just going to stay right on the top of this and keep walking around the edge. And the other thing about both of these beds, they are right next to the 2-track. This 2-track doesn't get driven down. Granted, people walk down it or whatever ever so often, but this is like 20 feet from the edge. You guys see that right there? That's the 2-track right there. So they can lay right here and see everything that goes up and down that. Alright, we're gonna head this way. This right here, you see it goes down. That's the thermal bowl right there. You guys see this? That's the thermal bowl. So basically, this is a textbook example of how these deer do this. They're all bedded up on the top of this right here, surrounding this thermal bowl. You can see there's another big bed right here. We got this over here. Edge, but you can see this natural funnel right down into it. Started raining pretty good now. You can see the trail. You guys can see this natural funnel right down into there. Alright guys, this funnel goes right down into the thermal bowl. So I definitely just marked that on the map. I'm going to keep cruising this way, trying to stay up out of this. Obviously it's raining out. Probably wouldn't matter at all if we went down in there. But I'm not going to go down in there at all. I wish I could to show you guys what's down there. There's a giant community scrape down there. But there's no sense in going down in there, so. See what's here, some oaks. You can see them deer were bedded up over there. The other side of that. I'm sure they're bedding here too, but this is a little more open. You guys look down there. Down in there's the bowl. There's some acorns in here. See some old acorn. Big oak right here. Yeah, there's some oaks over here. This is where they're feeding. They bed over there. I wonder if they bed over there, work their way this way, feed under these oaks, and then go down into the hub. Alright guys, these are kind of trickling down. We got some white pines and some oaks right here. Looks like they're bedded in here too. And I saw some feeding sign. We're gonna try to keep working this top hill around. Like this right here. I can smell the deer in here too. Yeah, right here, this right here. So they're definitely bedding over there. And then this is starting, if you can see it, it's slowly starting to work down on this edge. See, this is all bedded. They're bedding all over in here. Alright. This area here around the top edge. You can see it starts to go down that way too. We're gonna keep following this edge around, guys. Alright guys, got oriented on the map real quick. We're really skirting the public-private line. Not really that close, but I just want to make sure I don't head that way. And this land is getting really interesting here because we got the thermal bowl heading down like I showed you. But then it almost looks like it's forming another thermal bowl on the other side now. But that's kind of heading towards the private. So I'm going to keep skirting this ridge in between the two, looking for bedding. But I don't want to get too close back to where I've already scouted out because I don't want to waste my time. If you look right here, we got a ridge going off this way. And then if you look back this way, that's where the thermal bowl goes down. But it's looking like this is going down into another bowl. So we're going to keep walking this ridge. You could definitely see, oh look at these honeys here. Those are perfect. Check that out, guys. Is it pizza time or what? Well, that was pretty awesome. You don't find honey mushrooms in any better condition than that. So I think we'll have to make some wild mushroom pizza when we get home with the kids. But we're going to keep rolling this way down. This looks like another big bed. Sure, there's a bed up here somewhere. Okay. Looks like it right there. You can see the trail coming this way and the trail coming that way. He lays right here. Thermal bowls right down there. You can smell everything, see everything, hear everything. Just kind of got a knob. Alright, we're going to keep on this way. You can see this starts to drop down that way. Looks like it might be a big bed right there. You can see this giant scrape right here. That's an enormous bed right here. Alright, guys. We just came down over this knob right here. The other big buck beds were back further that way on top of the knob. As we got over to the leeward side of this knob, I noticed this giant pine bed right here. You could just see right here. And then right here. And then right there. So once I saw the enormous pine bed, I noticed this giant scrape right here. Look at this licking branch. That thing is destroyed. You can see this coming through here. There's a giant trail coming to this. Alright, I'm going to turn back around. You can see this scrape is huge. There's one bucket here. There's another bucket behind it. Alright guys, I don't know about you, but this has got me fired up. This is a huge another community scrape right here. There's actually a pretty decent track in it. I'll show you guys in a second. But what you don't know, or you do know from the video, is the thermal hub, the main huge community scrape, is down over this side. So I'm going to flip around and give you guys some more footage of this scraping area because it's super cool. Alright, so here's as we walk into it. You can see we're right on the edge right here. You got one licking tree right here. You've got a second licking tree right here. And then you've got a third licking tree right here. You got one bucket right here. Feeding this licking tree right here. And then you got another bucket right here. Feeding this gnarly ass this whole tree is like a licking tree. And then look at that. That's crazy. It almost looks like there's another one over here. Some beds and stuff. I think that buck's bedding right here, like right on this scrape. You can see this giant trail coming this way. And you can see this giant trail coming this way. Alright guys, we're going to get out of here real quick. We got some good footage and obviously mark this spot on the map. Can't wait to e-scout this out better when we get home because I'm really getting a good idea of how this big buck's using this territory. We're going to follow this trail back the way we came. See all the trails right here. There's 1, 2, 3 going down this, and then this huge trail going this way. Alright guys, we just cruised away from that big scrape. We got a giant intersection right here. You can see it coming this way down into the pines. And you can see this is the trail we just came up from that goes to that big giant scrape. So we definitely just marked this big intersection right here. Looks like this keeps going that way. We just came over that ridge right there. Found this big trail. We got another big intersection right here. So this looks like the trail that they're running up to those scrapes. And that scrape goes up to that big community scrape, which goes up to another couple scrapes, which then eventually goes down into that big hub. Looks like we got another big batch of goldens right here. Wow, look at this. It's like a big bucket right here. You can see this trail's heading down the backside of that hill now. They're bedding up on that knob right there. That scrape right there. Now I think we're coming back down to the old logging road. You know, here's the old logging road. And that other little scrape was right up there. this goes up into that big pine bed we were looking at earlier. That's exactly where it goes. Just got this big pine bed right here. Just telling me this must keep going out of here. Oh yeah. Got this big trail. Now we're up on that flat now where they were bedded. Those other beds are over there. We just came in like a big circle right there, which is completely predictable. That way he can move all around on the top of that knob. But you can see this big trail is heading down here. Then we got another thermal bowl down there. Alright guys, we got a little licking branch right here. You can see this is kind of worked. I don't know, not much of a scrape down there, but you can definitely see this is worked. There's a massive trail right here. It's a feeding area. You can see this is all open. Alright guys, we just came around the top of this knob right here. The trail we were following, that little scrape was right back here. I think they're bedding and feeding right here. You can see this is all cleared out. Looks like they're bedding right here. And I think there's some scrapes right here too. Look down here. I saw this right here. Which if you look at that hill, that's a giant licking branch right there. Look at the size of that. And this is all pounded right here. And I noticed this one. And this is all chewed up. And if you look over here, here's the main scrape. There's the licking branch. That's a giant scrape right there. See the licking branch? We got this trail going off this way, and another trail coming that way. And we got the other trail coming that way. Alright guys, I'm starting to get really fired up now because we're finding a whole bunch of good sign up here. This is our, second giant scraping area, along with the few that we found in between there. You can see there's another giant trail right here. I think there's another big scrape right here as well. You can see here, these are licked a little bit. We got this big trail coming here. Scrape right there, on here. Got these licking branches. And you got this right here, they're working as well. They're working that up there. That's coming down to this scrape here. Big trail coming down to the 2-track right here. Not only did we get blessed with a bunch of honey mushrooms, we also got some lobster claw here. Check those out. Alright guys, made it back to the truck safe and sound. Sorry I couldn't record the journey back. My arms were full of mushrooms. To come back with the basket and get the rest because there's so many out there. Here's part of what I came away with here. A bunch of honeys and some lobsters there, so that's pretty cool. I got a bunch more in my backpack. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. That was a really great scouting trip here. 2 major scraping areas, a couple other minor scrapes, a bunch of bedding, 2 feeding areas, all feeding down into the main community scrape there. So if you like buck scouting, like and subscribe. Happy hunting.